here for the Mayport or the Palm Valley Storytellers? A few of you. So we kind of invented this new event, and we did not prescribe any rules. We have not given them any instruction. So, as dangerous as that may be, it was more dangerous with Palm Valley, trust me. But, so, statute of limitations has mostly run out on any moonshining anybody might have done. So, we just say, you know, we've got our boardwalk exhibit up now. It's something that a lot of people remember. Does anybody remember growing up on the boardwalk, riding the rides? Okay, so a lot of you remember it who had no idea, really still has no idea what we're talking about with the boardwalk up there. Exactly. So that's why we do this. We want those of you who have no idea to hear some of the stories of the people who lived there and grew up on the boardwalk. So today we have Gary Crumley behind me here, E.J. Taylor, Bob Medley. I had some crashers up here. I've got John Taylor and Joe Hatfield. Is going to be speaking from the audience. And you are?
Chuck James.
Chuck James. Oh, that's like a rocker. Chuck James will be performing later. And then we also have, sitting on the sidelines here, and she'll tell you why later, we have Peggy Johnson and Marjorie Holloway. So I'm going to turn over the microphone, and we don't really know what's going to happen after that. We ask the speakers just tell us your memories, your stories. Try to not monopolize the microphone and give everybody a little bit of a turn. We didn't give them an order. We didn't give anybody topic matter. So we're going to see how this goes and who wants to go first. All right. Gary's starting us off.
Hi. Can everybody hear me all right?
Stand up.
I'm Gary Crumley, and I'm a teacher down there at Fletcher High School's community education program for 28 years. I graduated from Fletcher in '76, but prior to that, my mom, Jean Barber, also known as Jean Crumley, was at the Beach's Chamber back in the early to mid-'70s and made friends with a gentleman by the name of Walter Tobin, a gentleman who was also known as Toby. At the Playland Arcade over here behind the Beach's Music Shop over on 2nd Avenue North. Back in those days, we spent a lot of time at the boardwalk playing on the bumper cars or going over to Left Steakhouse, and I'd sit there at the diner and talk to Miss Four about her daughter, Sissy. She was pretty. Mama got me a job working at the arcade, running the pool tables and the pinball machines and fixing the skee balls. And what a fun time it was to be in the early '70s there at the boardwalk. The Beach's Music Shop, everybody loved to go hang out there and get the latest record from the concerts that were coming through, like the Allman Brothers. Always a lot of fun there with the folks playing at the bumper cars. We had the Ferris wheel. Down at the bus station, we had the golf carts, the go-karts. You hear me all right?
I hear you better.
Well, what we wound up doing at the boardwalk during the day, we have cars parked down there on the beach. We'd go down to the pier and see the guys fishing during the day, and the surfers would have to kind of fight with the fishermen for rights to surf at the pier.
Some things
in
never change.
'76, I wound up standing before the city council and won the rights to surf within 300 feet of the pier because we proved that the fishermen couldn't cast 1,000 yards out. So that became my first opportunity as a public speaker, and I've been having fun teaching at Fletcher ever since. Back in 1990, I teach the landscape design program for those of you who live at the beach. Classes are registering next week. Now, as a landscape architect, I'm very blessed as an urban planner to work with my father, who married my mom, by the name of Bob Barber, who was an urban planner. In '77, the conversation came around about what do we do with the boardwalk, and the idea that it was time to maybe make some changes, including getting rid of the cars driving on the beach, closing down the bars that had gentlemen entertainment, and try to clean the place up a bit. But prior to 77, if you were lucky enough to work at the boardwalk, you got some experiences as a teenager, some of which my mama was still kind of regretting. Did I get him too young to experience these things? But I want to tell you, it was a fabulous time to be part of that boardwalk. The top of the tides, you could shoot pool downstairs and go upstairs for a birthday surprise. You could ride your bike down on the boardwalk. You could go fishing all day. We could park our cars on the beach and go surfing until we were sunburnt. School split session in 74 allowed us to go to school from 7 in the morning till noon, or from noon to 5. So if you got the afternoon session, you could catch all the good surf in the morning. And back in those days, that was pretty much what we lived for as kids. The opportunity to work at the boardwalk offered us a chance to have folks like Arts Bingo, where you could roll the ball and win prizes, and you'd have a lot of Navy folk that would come through. And Toby would always be real happy when Georgia beat Florida, because the Georgia folks would stay overnight instead of driving 6 hours home to Athens, and they'd spend their money. Whereas the Gators, they'd drive home an hour and a half, and so we didn't have as much money. But the fun part of working there at the boardwalk was meeting all the girls in the bathing suits back when you were a 16-year-old. That was pretty neat stuff. So I made a lot of friends. I got to roller skate and rubber leg at the roller skating rink, and down below, Walter decided he was going to open up the second arcade and put me in charge of it, so I was very proud of that. Bob Parrish from the New York Jets decided to open up a little boutique store right next to us and had the latest New York City fashions. I remember getting a rather unusual looking silk outfit for the Rolling Stone show. Never had anybody pinch my butt before in a concert. So it was quite fun being a part of that boardwalk community in the 70s. The roller skating rink was everybody's favorite. And if you weren't roller skating, you'd come down and you'd play with the pool tables and the pinball machines, and foosball became the rage back in, I'd say probably 72, 73. So I became quite adept at beating people playing foosball. And, you're working all day for, I don't know, what was it, $1.50 an hour. So I started to play pool one-handed. That became something of a bit of a trick, and to this day, I'm still one of the best one-handed pool players that you'll find if you ever walk into Beach Bar. People know me. It's a fun place to be here at the Beaches Museum, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share some of these wonderful boardwalk memories. Left Steakhouse was a great place to get a bite to eat. Roller skating was always so much fun, and if you had a chance to grow up here during that time, you could drive your car on the beach, you could get a good bite to eat at the hot dog stand down there, and folks just seemed to have a lot of fun back in those days with games of chance. The Navy would come into town with the Forrestal or the Saratoga, and you'd have a whole bunch of folks come in. When the ship left town, things got slow. So we were really grateful for the Navy and Mayport. I'm now a part of the Mayport Waterfront Partnership, and was here for the Mayport Remember When, and I'm very grateful to have friends like Claudia Estes and Sandra Tuttle. I got to work out in Wimpy Sutton's class with Johnny Taylor over here, and got a chance to work with Chuck James. Went to high school with his wife, Dee Dee. And I'm just very blessed to be a part of the Beaches community. So I wanted to thank you opportunity-wise for having a chance to share with you the joys of going to 6th grade in Atlantic Beach and riding your bicycle and everything else. So I've probably been on the horn long enough to say it's time to pass the battle. But I hope you enjoyed a little bit of the reminiscence. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Hi everybody, can you hear me okay? Everybody, my name is EJ. My maiden name was McDonald. I was born and raised right here in Jacksonville Beach. Spent all my life here except for a couple years in Atlanta, Georgia, which I try not to think about too often. When you get sand in your shoes, you gotta live at the beaches. There's just no way around it. I was very lucky to have been raised on 2nd Avenue North, right next to the Masonic Temple on one side, and a filling station on the other side. And at night, one of my greatest memories was when I would, of course we always had the windows open because there was no air conditioning back then, or heat for that matter, of listening to the old wooden roller coaster, which was right down here on 1st Street, the screams. You could hear it going tick, 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 tick as it went up the first, and then as it crested over, everybody would scream. I would lie there listening to that thinking, oh gosh, I hope nobody gets hurt on that old rickety thing. It was scary looking, believe me. And as a youngster, I used to get the privilege of going down to my daddy's club, which was the Club 21 on 3rd Avenue North, just a little bit down from the boardwalk itself. If you've seen the exhibit, his roulette wheel is in the permanent exhibit over there. That was out of my daddy's club. He later went on to work at the Mermaid Tavern, but that's a whole nother story. Some of the things I think about when I think about growing up here and thinking about the boardwalk are the smells and the sounds. If you've ever smelled a corn dog frying, or cotton candy, or saltwater taffy. They used to have the pull, the big machines, we'd watch them pull. One of my favorite things is walking down the boardwalk and getting cold coconut milk. Who remembers that? Anybody? That was the best. It was ice cold coming out of those machines, and I've never found it since then. So if you know where you can get any coconut milk, let me know. The good cold stuff, and I'm there. Gary mentioned some of the rides down there that we had. The calliope on the merry-go-round is a sound I recall with just love in my heart. There's little airplanes that would go up and they'd hum when they went around, the little boats in the water, which my daughter Chrissy and my older daughter Robin got to partake in a little bit before they closed all that down. And the bumper cars. What was it he used to say? Mash your pedal? Was that it? And the funny thing was, there was a piece of, I don't know, metal of some kind, of big arch when it came up from the back of those cars, and it would go along the ceiling and sparks would just fly. We were never worried about being caught on fire for some reason. When I think back now, I thought if my children wanted to do that, I'd be like, no, you'll get, catch fire up there. But we never did. The Ferris wheel, it was wonderful. You could ride on it, ask him to stop you on the top, swing it, look over, I could see my house, which is only 3 blocks from the beach. So that was another wonderful memory. One of my favorite things in the Penny Arcade was this machine. I think they have some similar to it today, where you could put, I think it was a quarter, and this turntable would go around, and it had all these little prizes on it. And you'd push the button when you wanted to stop, and it would sweep things into the bin. And of course, you always would hope you would get good things out of that. Well, I hit the jackpot one day. I got a penknife and a Ronco lighter. I thought I was so rich. And there was the nicest gentleman named Mr. McDuffie, who had McDuffie's jewelry store. I think it was on Pablo Avenue. So I took my prizes and I went to Mr. McDuffie to sell them, thinking I was going to get a lot of money. I think he gave me 50 cents for both of them, which I promptly went back and spent in the video. Never got another thing out of it. That's okay. It was all fun. Another great memory I have of the boardwalk was the beauty pageants that we used to have down there, of which my sister Bobby Sutton would partake. Excuse me. And my mom and I would go up to the Club 21 and we would open the screen and hang out the screen and we could watch everything, including the 4th of July fireworks. There's another one little story I'll tell you, then I'm done. There was a gentleman named Toby, I can't recall his last name, who had a game on the boardwalk down towards the Casa Marina area. And it was a little ring toss. It had wood pegs, and you would toss these. They looked like, I don't know, embroidery hoops or something. But you would toss the rings, and it would go on the pegs, and you could win prizes. Well, I was pretty small at the time, I think 4 or 5 years old maybe. And I won a doll, this big doll dressed in red velvet whom I promptly named Retta said Idaho. Don't know where that came from. Never to this day did any of us figure it out. But I hope this has evoked some memories with some of y'all that are here, and just enjoy what we're reminiscing about, because this was in the 40s and 50s, guys. I'm old, okay? And it was a wonderful time to grow up. Safe, beautiful, happy. Everybody was friends. I'm gonna cry. I'm done.
Try to get through this part.
Hold it up.
So, James, if you haven't met me before.
Hold the mic up, Chuck. Hold the microphone. It's on. Just hold it near your mouth.
Up to my chin,
There you go.
right there.
That's
Yep.
better.
I like to have it when it's. My span tenure at Jack's Beach started in '63, and it was over weather, and probably 76 or somewhere in there. I closed up my last business, and where I was involved from a business perspective was I married into the Griffin family, which put me in the ride business. Right? So then, working between went to the military, came back. You still can't hear me? Am I getting okay? Maybe a little higher.
There you go.
I need to be strong, so you can hear me. There you go. So anyway, between my service time and college time, I came and went. Ultimately ended up coming back and having 2 restaurants. One was a bus station, and then there had an arcade. And then we put in the rides on the north end, which include the go-kart track. Okay? Then I had what's called Chuck's up on the boardwalk. I purchased Burt Wise out of that corner building where he had Burt Circus Bar forever, because I wanted to get rid of the beer. But being the only dummies ever returned a liquor license back to the state. But that's what youth lets you do, because you can do some wild things because you really don't look that far down the road. Then the parking on the beach is a huge issue. That was our death nail as far as that business along the oceanfront. All those discussions are mute at this point. But I will tell you that Tiny, I don't know Tiny, he was the policeman.
Tiny Road.
There you go. It was amazing how he kept the peace on that entire stretch of boardwalk all by himself. Right? Because everybody knew Tiny, and particularly the kids. He was great with them, but they were all fearful because they didn't know what that big guy was going to do. He was like this to me. Ferris wheel was kind of merry-go-round Ferris wheel. That's what you hear the most about or get the most questions over time. And then, of course, the go-kart for Holloway. But I'll say that from a business perspective, it was a great place to be, Jack's Beach, to be in business. From a security perspective, I was still walking at night up the boardwalk with my money bag at midnight, going to the drop at the local bank, and thought nothing of it. Today you couldn't run faster. Of course, I can talk a little bit about the pier. The pier was, I guess, in the 50s, 40s, and 50s. The pier, because of the dance hall, that was that level of entertainment. And it made the beach a big hit. Over the notes and stories I got when I came here, you always hear about how it was. Okay? But I've enjoyed my time. I stayed at the beach until a couple of years ago, and my wife and I moved to the north side, which is kind of interesting. And as a matter of fact, it's a nice place to be if you need someplace to go. But the beach is a place we come down, stay, and try to recreation, because of all the years that I was here, I never went on the beach. for recreation. I think there's one old photo where somebody caught me on the beach during a foot race. But other than that, I came and was able to recreation on the beach, and I'm very thankful for that. All right, guys?
My name is John Taylor. I'm not a big talker, but I'll say what I can. I moved here when I was 4.5 years old in 1945, and I've been here ever since. I worked on a boardwalk for 2 years for his grandfather, Bill Corbett. And we used to say hot dogs, hamburgers, spring fried cotton candy, candy apple, snowballs, you name it, we got it right here. And I remember all the rides. We used to have a lot of fun. We had a lot of Navy people come. We also had a lot of trouble with the Navy people, and they made it off limits for a while. And the pier has been moved twice. Where it is now is about a block from where it used to be when they moved it the first time between 6th and 7th Avenue South. And I worked in the food place most of the time. We had all these rides. It was just so much fun. And in the summertime, it was real busy. After Labor Day, they rolled the sidewalks up and everybody went back up north. We had a real good time. So I don't know much else to say. I worked for Floyd's 5 and 10 after I grew up where I met my wife, and I actually told the guys I was going to marry her. I did 59 years we've been married. I don't know what else to say to you. I worked at the phone company for 30 years, been on the beach all my life, went to Wimpy's Wonders, exercise, had a lot of fun, and I just love living at the beach. Thank you.
Y'all expect me to stand up? No. I'm Bob Medley, and I've lived here all my life. We worked at the beach. We had my grandmother had a place on the boardwalk, and at 8 years old, I didn't get to sit at home. Johnny was talking about the cotton candy and all that kind of stuff. I was in the back room cleaning potatoes and onions and all that sort of good thing, and cleaning, washing dishes. That was my big job. But the boardwalk, as far as I'm concerned, was the coolest thing in the world for a young fella here that lived here. And there was all kinds of little games, and it wasn't that very expensive. And grandmother would let me take a break and give me 10 cents or something, and I could stay out there for 30 minutes, and do just everything. But anyway, we was talking about the pier. I can't tell you how many times we all danced on the pier and went out there for the music and what have you, and fished. But also something nobody has mentioned, these orange ducks that you see sinking, we had 5 of them that sat right there where those cars are. And you could take a ride out around the pier and out and back in, and then ride back up where you got on. And it was more fun than barrel monkeys. And you think you were part of the stopping the cars on the beach? That's the worst thing that ever happened in the world. As far as I'm concerned, it killed Jacksonville Beach. But anyways, I've said all I'm going to say that. We'd sit up on the pier, and I think you and somebody was drag racing on the beach. sit up on the pier, because I was a little bit young for that, and watch them race. Of course, as soon as I got old enough to race on the beach, you weren't allowed to race on the beach. So I was playing behind all my life. Anyway, back to like the sandpiper, we would swim up there and go through all the Red Cross stuff, and I mean that was the thing for years and years and years. And going from there to roller skating, somebody said something about roller skating. I didn't know what shoe skates, boot skates, whatever you want to call them, was. We had the thing that fit on your shoes and tighten it down, and the only place that we could skate was at the McCormick's at the end of my street. We'd get on their driveway, because it was a big driveway. But you know, where the concrete has a thing through it, we had to learn to jump that because we scoot out of the escape. And then when they opened next to the Sandpiper, I don't remember what it was, that they made a skating rink out of it. And I bought my first boots, skates, and just had a blast. And we did it for years and years. You get older and have to work, and you can't do that sort of thing. And the other thing was, we went in to the lifeguard station several weeks ago. And when I was in the 50s, I went out to be trained for a lifeguard, and it was fun back then. It was blessed, you know. And yeah, about to get up the tower and have a girl, not like now. Anyway, and then I'm going to say it this way, cars, women, and work. And that took me away from there, and from there on I was working, and wife, and kids, all that sort of thing. And then I'll finish up, the boardwalk in Harrison Door got washed away. It jumped the concrete embankment and washed it all out. McCormick got the job to put dirt back in it. I was working for the city of Jacksonville Beach Electric Department at the time. And we worked all the way through the storm. And then when they started putting the boardwalk back in, we had to put the pipes and put the lights and whatever in. And we had to work 24 hours a day because McCormick was putting dirt in and pouring. And you had to stay in front of it. And that was quite a thing. So, I don't know. I can't imagine having kids now and dealing with what they have to, because when we all were growing up together, we didn't have that problem. And whatever. Okay, well, not a talker.
Do you want to speak now?
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hatfield will take over. He's an older person. The Hatfield McCoys.
You didn't have to clap, I hadn't said anything yet.
That was for Bob.
You mentioned the Hatfield McCoys, I'll have to mention that our great granddaddy, they had a story on the History Channel. Kevin Costner did about the Hatfield boys. He played our great granddaddy, Devil Ranch Hatfield. So
Wow.
we didn't tell that in school, but we thought they'd kick us out. So. I graduated, I can tell my age because men don't care about how old they are. I was born September Friday the 13th.
In the middle, we can't hear you.
That's Johnny Taylor's wife. My wife's not here to yell at me, so she's taking talking about Johnny Quant. He's sitting there. Raise your hand, Johnny Quant. He was one of my best friends. We used to catch turtles. I had 60-something turtles and 2 alligators. Instead of studying in school, we were catching turtles and stuff. And Johnny Taylor was my best friend in school. We went through the first grade through the graduated high school together. And he wanted to have a date with Alice, and her daddy didn't like him too well. In fact, her daddy didn't like anybody that. Well, there's a lot of pretty girls at Fletcher High School, but they had the prettiest girls in that family. All of them. All the girls were just bathing beauty girls. Johnny got me to go pick her up to go to the prom, and I took her to him. We went to the prom. I was so bashful in school. I didn't go to the prom. I didn't go. No, neither one. But then they wanted to run off and get married. So I was the best man. We took off to Georgia. Huh? They got to Georgia, and I was the best man, and she had a girl there, and one of them quickie marriages. They thought they had it quick over there in Las Vegas. They really do it in Georgia. Anyway, I've never talked in front of a big crowd like this. I used to have 5 Rottweiler dogs, and I'd talk in front of them. I'd tell them to sit, they'd sit, and then they'd just sit there and listen to me, and then when I got through, they come up and start, y'all don't have to do that. They come up and start. Anyway, I was born in September. I was born on September 13th, Friday the 13th, in fact, 1940. So I don't mind telling my age, but anyway, I graduated from high school in 1959. My sister and my brother, Claudia Hatfield Hughes, my brother Mike Hatfield, went to Fletcher. Mike put the shooting gallery gun in the thing in there that he had that they had on the boardwalk. When you walked up the boardwalk, you had to climb this pretty steep place to get up there. You went by the Dodson cars, you went by the Ferris wheel, and you turned left, and the first place on the left was my grandmother's place. And she was crippled all her life. She walked up that hill until she was in her 80s before she finally retired. She sold cold drinks and beer and stuff like that, no food. My daddy had the place next door, Joe's Pee Wee Bar. He owned that place, and they had a hole cut in the wall, and when somebody wanted a hot dog at my grandma's place, she'd knock on there with a cane, and they'd slip the hot dog in there too. Now, Wimpy Sutton worked for my dad, and he ate so many hamburgers. My daddy's the one that named him Wimpy. And then I think that's where he got all this thing. He'd call you hot dogs, he'd call you hamburger. I think he picked up some more stuff about hot dogs when he was working there. So, then if you went up the other ramp and went right, the place was enclosed right there. And my granddaddy had the shooting gallery on the right. That's where that gun come from. My brother put in there. And then if you walk about middle ways, he had another place that sold candy apples and cotton candy and peanuts and these little donuts and all that kind of stuff. And like Johnny said, him and his brother, Bo, Bobby Taylor, used to work for him at one time. He had another place down at the end. But I remember one time we used to take school, what they call them when you go on these field trips and stuff. We always go to the old fort in St. Augustine, Marineland sometime, and we would go to the zoo. So my granddaddy gives me this big box of donuts to take to the zoo to feed the monkeys. I don't know if monkeys like donuts or not, but I took it anyway. So I go up there and I hand the box of donuts up to the elephant. Okay, so the elephant grabs the box and eats the box. All the donuts went on the ground. Some kid said, I'm gonna kill the elephant, you know, that's what they have to do. But I live in Marietta, Georgia now. Been married to my wife for 54 years. And she couldn't come with me down here, but I tell all the guys back home that growing up in Jacksonville Beach, Florida was the best place to grow up as a kid, swimming. And one year a whale washed up on the beach. And Johnny Quant and I went down there with a hacksaw and cut the jaw out of it and had got the teeth. It was lightning. You remember that, Johnny? And there used to be, yeah. Oh, another time, Johnny and I went, used to go ride in the dune buggy down to see the turtles and watch them lay the eggs. So they laid the eggs, and my daughter, actually, they put me in jail. They might still do it. I put my daughter on the turtle, and she rode the turtle all the way back to the, and she was little. She was real little.
We're just going to delete that part real quick.
You take that out of the video.
Yeah, we paused it.
Censor that. I was just kidding. But Johnny and I, we worked together with best friends. I was supposed to go with him to a party down at Michael's Pier one time, and it was at Michael's Pier, and I didn't go. I had something else to do. Well, he went to pass a car. There wasn't many curves around here, but they were. He could straighten them out in that 55 Ford. Hit head on with a truck, and I'd have probably been in the driver's, in the passenger side. So lucky I didn't go. But used to walk out of the house with my .22 rifle. With the rifle, walk out to the dump, shoot bottles and stuff. You know. Now, if you walked out with a rifle, you'd never get out. And but growing up on the boardwalk and the Penny Arcade, if y'all remember the Penny Arcade, and the main thing, you walk in there to change, they walk around with all this money in their pocket. So, but it was a wonderful place to grow up, and that's about all I got to say. I know I forgot something.
Hello everyone, I'm Peggy Rice Johnson. I was born on 3rd Avenue South. Does anyone remember where Webb's grocery store was? That's the street I was born on, in the home that my dad built. He worked for Mason Lumber Company. My mom worked for Alpha Painter, who owned the copper kettle that you now know as Ocean 11. Okay, that was then, it became the Sea Turtle, but it was the copper kettle. And the one thing that they tell me, that when I was 3 years old, and I'm 75, when I was 3, that a guest from New York carried me in the water in front of Aunt Alpha's copper kettle, and that about 3 to 6 police cars came to the copper kettle to get the end baby out of the water. So that's the story that they always told me. Believe it or not, Aunt Alpha lived at what you know as the homestead. I grew up playing on bearskin rugs upstairs there, because my mother then worked at the restaurant for her, along with her cook, who was Morris Roundtree. Morris Roundtree's husband ran the 600 Club on 1st Avenue South, English Roundtree. So I grew up I would get off the school bus from Douglas Anderson. I'm the first valedictorian of the class of '59 from Douglas Anderson. I lived here until I married my husband, and then I moved to Arlington, and I now introduce myself as Widow Johnson. I've been widowed, will be 20 years in February. But I taught at Jacksonville Beach Elementary for 6 years. I taught at Atlantic Beach Elementary for 18 years. So my experience, and this is the one experience I remember of the boardwalk. I was 10 years old, so that's 65 years ago. My girlfriend was 11. Hazel Martin retired from Atlantic Beach also. We went to work, does anyone remember Martin G. Williams' hot dog hamburger stand?
Yes.
We went to work to clean the kitchen while they were prepping and serving the hamburgers and hot dogs. We were keeping the area clean. At the end of that day's work, guess what our pay was? A big bag of greasy hamburgers and 75 cents. But believe it or not, that was wonderful back then. We carried the 75 cents home. Mom saved a quarter for you. You got to spend a quarter, and you had to give Mom a quarter because you weren't supposed to be working. Okay, but she allowed you to go and do this day's work. In addition to growing up at the beach, I was the summer maid for the Donaldsons in Ponte Vedra when their maid would go on vacation. She would have a 6-week vacation, and I was allowed to, at 17, drive a Cadillac with no driver's license. Mr. Roy Landrum, as you know, was the constable in Ponte Vedra. Mr. Donaldson, Mr. Grant Donaldson, I stayed at the home with his wife, who was paraplegic from an accident. And so in the summer, when their maid went on vacation, I would work for them. He said to Mr. Landrum, I have a 17-year-old maid with no driver's license. So when you see that yellow Cadillac going through Ponte Vedra, she has to pick up the mail, and she has to go to Georgia Package Store and pick up a fifth of Early Times every day. I didn't have any license. Nobody stopped me because it was who you knew. My mother also worked for Treva Moore, who was vice president of the Beach Bank. I have not lived here, but I still come to St. Andrew AME Church on 9th and 2nd. I also am affiliated with the old school that we saved as the Rhoda Martin Cultural Heritage Center. And we invite you over to see our collection of the African American Museum production of, Chris came over to see, we have some old records. We have Ma Rainey, we have Fats Waller, for those of you that know the old timers. In addition to some of the black artists, they were well, I grew up a colored girl. I went to school as a Negro girl. I later became a black woman. And now I have vitiligo on my legs, and I'm probably going to die a white old lady.
Hello, my name is Marjorie Holloway. I don't know anything about the beach. The only thing I know is my mother worked in a bad house. And I would go there sometime on a Sunday with her. But other than that, I knew about the roller coaster. Other than that, I don't know anything about it. All I know is I was born and raised here on Jacksonville Beach. I taught here for 38 years. And I retired from Seabreeze Elementary School. So I've been here all the time. It's not too much changing. Well, it is changes. Has been since I was born and raised here. So
You didn't tell them how old you are.
I always worry about how old I am in my hair. I don't know why, but she worries about how my hair is so black. But I am 86 years old. Wow. I have did a lot of volunteer work after I finished in at the museum, I have taught reading in the afternoons there for about 4 or 5 years until I started catching everything that the little people had. And so then I said, well, it's time for me to give it up. So I've done my duty here on Jacksonville Beach. Now I'm sitting home doing what I want to do.
Okay, now it's when we freestyle. You don't have to come up, but you have to be loud. Yep, but you have to be loud.
In the 1990s, I had a chance just for a short while to work for the Times Union for their shoreline section out here at the beach. And I had the privilege of interviewing, I can't remember his name, you all remember, the first principal of Fletcher High School? Frank. Doggett. Yep. And I also interviewed on her 90th, the occasion of her 90th birthday, Lolita Gaskins. Does anyone remember Lolita Gaskins? Yes. And she told me a story. One of the things that she told me when she was trying to get me in touch with things she saw that most people at that time hadn't seen was she talked about the dawn dances they would have on the pier. And so, and I hadn't even realized there was a dance floor. How many people here knew there was a dance floor on the pier? What lucky people you were, and why didn't we do that a second time? But it was a killer idea. Pardon?
The old pier.
The original pier, right.
Shad pier.
S-H-E, so the Shad Pier. And she said that they, that Louis Armstrong had performed there, and it was quite a thing. Again, so jealous. Very, very envious, not to have lived in better times. But the final thing, she talked about those dawn dances and that people would begin to dance, and you would dance until the sun comes up. Does anybody? So
air conditioned, open air.
Very air conditioned, the right kind of air conditioning, and those all sounded like such ideal and beautiful experiences. I've always envied it, and if you didn't know about it already, I wanted you to hear it today.
We've got a great picture. There's a great picture of one of the dances in the exhibit, so when you're done, make sure to peruse there. And I heard there was even like a junior prom the night before they condemned it. I feel like maybe you just go ahead and cancel the event before you condemn the pier, but it worked. And unfortunately, Maxwell Dickinson, who was supposed to be here today, he's got some great stories. He was on the beach with his family when the SS Gulf America, when you could see it from the beach. So if you haven't heard about that, that's also in our exhibit. So I'm not going to tell you anything about it. Go and learn. Okay, yes sir, Mr. Chuck.
Let me see if I can get some equal time in here for the beaches leader. During the 10 years that I wrote for the beaches leader, I spent a lot of time in Palm Valley meeting the Michael family, the Barkowski family. Came over here when you were getting started. You weren't here then, Christine, because you and I got back to the American Cancer Society.
Right.
But somebody who has been mentioned several times by speakers, and I don't think anybody truly specified how he got his nickname. He ate a lot of hamburgers, but where did the name Wimpy come from? I got to know the beaches icon, John B. Sutton, when I worked for the Beaches Leader newspaper, and Wimpy would write a fishing column. He would handwrite it. And I was the one that got the transcribe and put it into the system. And eventually, Wimpy, for Bobby, his wife Bobby, who was a great dancer. He and Wimpy were just wonderful, wonderful ballroom dancers. Bobby took it over, and I said, thank God. But, okay, he worked at the hot dog stand that's been mentioned several times. The swimming pool at Fletcher High School is named for him because he was Fletcher's swimming coach. But he was also an incredible science teacher. And Wimpy is known throughout the beaches. Anybody who knows the Popeye cartoons would know where Wimpy came from, because Popeye's good friend Wimpy was always eating hamburgers. So therefore, that's how Wimpy Sutton came to be.
And I'll gladly pay you Tuesday.
There you go.
Anyway, I I just had to get that in.
Thank
From
you.
Before the Beaches Leader newspaper.
Are you coming up to the front? Oh, uh-oh. This is gonna get interesting.
Hey, don't let this guy talk from Palm Valley.
Working?
Yeah. Hold it up close.
Well, I'm here to tell you about the boardwalks over here about, now when I,
We can't hear you.
Tom,
Closer to your
she'll hold it up.
okay.
There it is.
All right, I want you to know that I was a graduate of Jacksonville Beach Elementary, 1949. The only thing I ever graduated from. In fact, once I got out of there, I knew everything I needed to know. But the boardwalk, for all those kids back in the early 50s, was nothing but a way to make money. I mean, from the morning we woke up in the summer, we were thinking about a way to get down to that boardwalk and hustle some money. And the first thing you did, they had the bullet. Remember the bullet?
Yes.
It went up, it would stop, and then it would go around and stop. Well, when it stopped up there, money fell out of the people. If you were a kid, you wouldn't know it. So the very next morning, you had to rush to get there before everybody else to look around that and pick up what money you took. And then they also, the greatest other thing on the boardwalk was the mouse game. You remember the mouse game? Art's mouse game. It was a game. And it was a great big round table. And the room was almost the size of this room. And it had a big table with colors coming all the way out. And there'd be a whole lot of red. Red would be the most odds that you could win on. And in front of everybody sitting in the square was colors. And you would bet your chips on that color. And under each of these colors that came around this table was a little cup. And they took a mouse and they set it in the middle of that table. And then everybody bet. And then they dropped it down with a string, with a magnet, and it picked that cup up, and that mouse would stand like that, and he'd run like hell and go in a hole. And the hole he went in, they stuck a little thing in, and what color it was, you won. Yeah, and that was called the mouse game. The way you hustle a mouse game, the minute they open up, you have to get there. And you have to get there because right by the mouse game, they had these boardwalk things that you walk on that were grades. They were all grades. And a lot of guys would drop their chips. See, they'd get down in that grade and they couldn't get them. So the minute they opened up, you'd be there with some gum. And you look down in all those grades, and you'd see your little red chip, and you get that, baby. And then when they opened up that day, you see, you were too young, one was 10 or 11. When they opened up that day, you would go up there and somebody would be gambling, and you go say, "Sir, would you put some old red for me?" You put it on red because red was the best odds. See, you learn all this when you hustle. Just like that here, I saw a picture of 1947. And they had benches out there. Remember they sell cotton candy and everything, and they had benches out there. Well, back then it was all bottles. So they'd sell Coca-Cola bottles to people, and they would go out and drink them and leave them on that bench. Well, I would come along and had another buddy on the beach that had a croaker sack, and we'd throw those bottles onto the beach, see? And then, of course, we'd go deposit them. They were 2 cents a piece. And the other great thing on the boardwalk was when they used to, you throw a ball and knock minorities into the water. They know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And the Seabirds were at the beach, a baseball team. And it was big. It was a big thing. I mean, when they sat there and dropped in that water, it was up there 89 feet. When you knocked them in the water, it was something. But when they throw those baseballs, they had a big target like that. And most of it was rubber. So when the guys threw it, it'd go right through that rubber and not knock them in the water. So I'd get up there and say, hit the red spot. Hit the red spot. And finally they'd zero in on them, and boy, did they start knocking them in the water. Of course, those are things they don't like to talk about. But anyway, the boardwalk was a wonderful place to grow up. The pier had dances on it all the time. To get on the pier, you paid 50 cents to get out on the pier to go dance. When I was 16 and 17, we loved you out there because they had real professional dancers out there. They were really something to watch. But they collected money right up as you go onto the pier, right off the boardwalk. They collected the money, and then the pier was covered, you know. So we would go under the pier, climb up on the sewer pipe. Sewer pipe about that big around, and shuffle ourselves all the way out past where the guy collected the money. And then we'd look over there when he was taking money, we'd jump over the railing and go into the bathroom right there. And then you had rust all over you. Now you were a mess. So you clean up the best you could. Then you walk back off the pier. Stick your hand out and they stamped it. Then you go all the way home. Take a shower. Put your good clothes on. And come back to the dance.
Tommy Frazier is a heck of a dancer. I watched him jitterbugging for many, many, many years. He used to put everybody to shame out on that pier.
I feel like he'd also be really good on our fundraising committee. Someone,
Hi, my name's Diane. My mom was born in 1926 in Atlantic Beach, and her house is still standing on Ocean East on 3rd, and it's such a rich history to ride my bike on the same streets that she did. In 1926, I think Atlantic Beach was formally founded, and I see it on t-shirts and stuff, but she was a USO girl. She met my dad in the Navy at a dance, and they were actually married in that church, in the chapel, and so it has real significance to me. And I was, actually when I was a year old, well, when I was born in Massachusetts because they went back where my dad was born. She couldn't handle the cold, so when I was a year old, they moved back here. And we were actually raised in Arlington, but we came all the time to the beach. And I remember the boardwalk and the bumper cars and the Ferris wheel. And as a teenager, we would go to Hannah Park, which was Access 5, and pick up tacos at Mama Tacos. And it was really just a rich history. You know, I just love being at the beach, and I have Cape Cod roots also, but I just want to say, like, I was here during Hurricane Dora in '64, and my father took us to see the beach be sandbagged, and, you know, a 100-year-old tree fell parallel to my yard, and we had water in the bathtub. It was the same week the Beatles came, and my uncle took us to see the Beatles, and like, this is history in the making. And also, my father, when African Americans could go on the beach, he took us down to the beach because this is history in the making and it should have never been otherwise. And so that's a rich history also. And you know, when things stay the same and the stories are told and retold, it makes the past alive. And so you go some places haven't changed, like that little chapel, but there's so many places that have changed. And when you, I just appreciate you here at the museum, because when you share those images, it reminds us of the past and it keeps the history alive. And so keep telling the stories to your children because you have such a strong connection to this area and wherever you're from. So thank you.
What a lovely way to end today's program. Thank you. And I didn't even put her up to that. That was wonderful. That was really nice. So there's a million more stories to share, and I invite you guys to hang out, stay around. We're just at an hour of our program, and I know these are not the most comfortable chairs in the world. But we do want you to stay here, enjoy each other, enjoy some more stories, come meet up with our speakers, and thank you all to our speakers, and then and this guy who bothers Sarah. But we do have, oh Sarah, can you hand me that really quick? I wanted to make a few more quick plugs, because that's what I do, but I also serve on the board of the Volunteer Life Saving Corps, and one of the things they're doing to raise money is they've got the blueprint of the PEG, which the PEG is the observation tower. So this is from, I think, 1946. So we have these for sale. They're $25. We don't even have them in our inventory yet, but I have 4 of these. So if you'd like to take one of these home, I've got red, black, and blue matting. And this does benefit the Volunteer Life Saving Corps as well as the museum. So you get a 2 for there. Again, encourage you to join as a member. All of our members get 10% off in our gift shop. If you haven't been back there, we've got a lot of these historic images as well as some great books about the area and by people from the area. So we'd love to have you. Anytime you guys learn about the history of the area, it's great for you and it's great for our community. So please stay. Check out the boardwalk exhibit. It's down the hall on your right, and then straight back is our permanent exhibit. Oh, thank you. Carla reminded me that you also have a survey. We'd love to know what you think, good, bad, anything. We really appreciate you taking a moment to fill that out to give us the feedback on today's program. So thank you guys for spending some time with us on Saturday afternoon. Get out there, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we hope to see you back here soon. One down, here we go.